So you end up with therapists who are so smart. They might have PhDs. They've done so much to earn their licenses. They do incredibly complex therapy work. They're brilliant people who go into a shutdown when they try to think about how much they need to save for taxes, right? And go into these more basically trauma kind of responses around money because money is so loaded and so stressful.
This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Everyone, welcome to the podcast. This is episode number 395 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer, and so glad you're with me. So glad you're with me on this journey and listening in, and hope you'll take time to follow the podcast or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. So I'm really looking forward to you hearing from Linzy Bonham, who is a therapist that has really kind of gone from becoming a therapist to a money coach for private practice owners. And we had just a really good conversation about our money mindset. And again, this is a theme that you've probably, if you've been listening to me for a while, a theme that comes up quite a bit is just the importance of just getting your head straight, so to speak, around money and understanding that, because I think it's real easy for us to just create a lot of anxiety for ourselves and really create a mindset of scarcity when it comes to money. But I think as you move through this whole navigation of private practice and being able to understand all the different pieces, having a clear financial goal, but also just a way you think about money is so important. And so Linzy and I dive into this, and I'm really looking forward to you hearing that conversation. One of the things, too, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, is the importance of community and finding people, trusted mentors and trusted colleagues that you can really draw on for support within your practice. And one of the things that I'm really focusing on this year is doing more individual consulting with people. So if you're interested in working with me, I'd love to start a conversation. If you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com and just click on the button there, I think it's on the top right, that just says coaching and consulting, and you can find out more about that work with me. We can set up a free 15-minute brainstorming session and talk about your goals and maybe the areas in which you're struggling, and we'll go from there and decide what's going to be the best plan of action as far as doing some more intensive consulting or what's going to be a good fit for you. So be sure and check that out. And also, before we get to my conversation with Linzy, I'd love for you to hear from one of the members of the Psychcraft network, along with some words from our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes.
Hey there. Are you searching for answers and clarity on your mental health journey? Well, I've got the podcast just for you. Welcome to Finding Your Way Through Therapy, a podcast that's like having a heartfelt conversation with a trusted friend and who understands what you're going through. I'm your host, Steve Biesel, a therapist and proud member of the Psychcraft network. Finding Your Way Through Therapy is a safe space where we openly explore the emotional complexities of mental health. From busting common myths to sharing actionable advice, we'll navigate this journey together through solo episodes as well as special guests. Discover your inner strength, resilience, and hope as we explore topics like self-care, building healthy relationships, cognitive behavioral therapy, and overcoming challenges. You'll come away with a renewed sense of self and the tools to create a life filled with fulfillment and well-being. So join me on Finding Your Way Through Therapy as we become your companion on this deeply personal journey. I am part of the PsychCraft Network and truly enjoy all the episodes. And back to your regular scheduled programming.
Rachel here with a quick shout out to TherapyNotes, the EHR that Gordon uses and loves for running his group practice. If you've ever been looking for a solid, all-in-one platform to manage your notes, scheduling, billing, and even secure client messaging, this is it. Gordon's been using TherapyNotes for years, and it's honestly made a huge difference in how smooth things run behind the scenes. He's always saying how it saves him time and keeps everything organized, and as a practice owner, that's huge. And get this, they've just rolled out Therapy Fuel, which is an amazing suite of AI tools that help write your notes faster. You can generate progress notes from session summaries or even from transcriptions. You can also create contact notes straight from secure messages and automatically summarize client history forms. Basically, it's like having a little documentation assistant built right in. Plus, TherapyNotes is always adding new features like automated payments, secondary insurance billing, and a growing library of outcome measures. And if you ever get stuck, their customer service is phenomenal. Seriously, you can call or email 24/7 and talk to someone who actually knows what they're doing. So, if you've ever been thinking about switching or just getting started, now's a great time. Head over to therapynotes.com, click Start My Free Trial, and use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free. All right, back to the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm really happy for you to get to know today Linzy Bonham. And Linzy also has a podcast, and I'm going to give her a chance to talk about that. But Linzy, as I start with everyone, tell folks a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed.
Yeah, so I am based in Ontario, as we chatted about before we started recording. So I'm a Canadian social worker by training, turned financial coach, therapist, educator for therapists. So I was a trauma therapist in private practice, loved that work. But when I stepped into private practice, found that nobody was talking about money. And I was so hungry and eager. And I was like, wait, where's the information on how I save the right amount for taxes and how I file my receipts? You know, I came into private practice really hungry for that information and found it just wasn't out there. So off the side of my desk as a complex trauma therapist, I started helping my colleagues with the financial part of their practice. And then eventually I built my course, Money Skills for Therapists, in 2018. And since 2020, that is what I've been doing full time. I've stopped being a therapist. I am retired, which is always fun to say when you are well below retirement age. And now I focus entirely on helping therapists in private practice and group practice owners with the financial side of running a practice.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big move. And I know I've had conversations with other folks that have, kind of left the therapy world or not left it completely. Usually there's a tie to it in some way, but yeah, maybe we can chat about that. But I know one of the big things that we wanted to try to tackle today is just our money mindset and how it can really affect us as therapists, and particularly in private practice. And I know people have heard from me on this podcast just a little bit more about that, but tell us kind of your take on kind of our money mindset and just what you've learned in the work that you've been doing.
Yeah. When I started teaching finances to therapists in 2018, my initial thought was that I needed to teach them spreadsheets, which is true. We do need to learn spreadsheets. But what I very quickly discovered, Gordon, is like in the way of being able to learn these financial skills and to develop the financial literacy are all of these stories and emotions and experiences, all this programming that we have that makes it really hard to learn. So what I have found with therapists is the mindset pieces around money, our emotional relationship to it can be so strong, so negative that they actually interfere with our ability to learn and function in the financial space. So you end up with therapists who are so smart, they might have PhDs, they've done so much to earn their licenses, they do incredibly complex therapy work. They're brilliant people who go into a shutdown when they try to think about how much they need to save for taxes, right? And go into these more basically trauma kind of responses around money because money is so loaded and so stressful. So, there's many, many reasons for this, and we can dig into that. But I do find that a therapist who does not have a lot of stress and baggage around money is a rare creature.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
There's a few layers to it. I think that part of it is that, generally speaking, as therapists, we are accidental business owners. We go into private practice because we want to be able to serve our folks in our way. I know that's why I went to private practice. I was getting out of somewhere, getting out of an agency culture that I was like, this place is killing me. I can't stay here. I wanted to be able to serve the people I wanted to work with in my own way. And then in doing so, I had a business all of a sudden. So generally speaking, therapists are not people who, read business books in advance, have an MBA as well. Some of them exist, but they're very rare. We usually end up accidentally owning businesses, which means we have no education in this area, right? And there's a general lack of education and conversation about money in our society in general, right? Very few of us get actual purposeful financial education from our parents. We don't learn this in elementary school. We don't learn this in high school. And then you go into your professional training, whatever niche of therapy, whatever zone you're in, we don't get training there either. So we actually end up in an area where we're completely ill-equipped. We have no training, and then we're expected to know how money works. So that's part of it. But then the other layer on top of that lack of education is all the negative messages that we get about money as kind of helper healer type people, as therapists, as, that person who's always been taking care of everyone around us as it is. So I generally find most therapists, my theory is that most therapists have been practicing therapy long before they were licensed. We were usually like that person, in the corner of the party talking to somebody about their relationship with their dad. The first time I was called a therapist, I was 12 years old. My friend at the time said oh, you're my therapist. And I was like, I remember thinking that's bad. I don't think that's how friendship is supposed to be. But usually we've been giving away these services for free for our whole lives before we go into the field. So also we have already had the experience of doing this for free, giving too much of ourselves, being overly sacrificing. And then we step into having this as part of the way that we are earning money. And suddenly we have to start valuing it and attaching a dollar amount to it. And that's a huge leap that we have to make. There's a lot of stories that have to be undone to be able to do that work.
Right. And I think one myth that, I know I had to overcome early on in my career is just thinking about if I receive money for what I'm doing for someone, then am I really helping? And I think that's just a total myth. And I was sharing with Lindsay before we started recording. I consider myself a recovering people pleaser. And that's been a focus of my own therapy here lately. But yeah, and I think it can be misplaced, and I think that it can kind of really hold us back in being successful, and really kind of can stifle our ability to truly help people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that people pleasing element is huge. And then I would say even layered on top of that too, we then get additional stories about money that we inherit from our families, right? So rarely have I met somebody who's like, yes, my parents were very clear and purposeful in how they taught us about money, and they taught us all these skills. And usually what we've inherited from family is observations that we've made. There's this saying that children are excellent observers, lousy interpreters, right? So we see something happening, we make meaning of it. We hear the phrases that our parents say around money, like, money doesn't grow on trees, or we don't have the money for that. Or we see our parents' behaviors of acting like the family has no money and then suddenly going out and spending a ton of money. And we also get this whole bag of baggage, a whole suitcase, if you will, of baggage from our families too, that is then layered on top of this lack of education and this natural caregiving, self-sacrificing way. And then you can throw in identity factors in there too about, women and what they're supposed to earn. For a person of color, are you supposed to earn money? Like all these other messages. We've all got just like a whole tangle of stories that we're dealing with, many of which are often contradictory, but still run us under the surface.
Right. Yeah, I was just reflecting as you were mentioning that. Just one of the messages I kind of received from my family is that to get money, it was more about luck or good fortune, or if you had money, it was maybe that it was you were to be shamed in some way, or that sort of thing. And so, and that's something that we all have to kind of look at and overcome.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many layers to these stories, Gordon, that they come up to years into doing your money work. A new story surfaces in a new way, or maybe you have changed and suddenly you are that person who's earning a lot of money. And so these stories come up suddenly in this new way because it's like, oh, now I am that person that my family judged, right? And then often too, we're also navigating relationships with families or partners who then have their own stories too. So as you change your money story, how does your family react to that? How do your friends react to you starting to maybe earn more money, not be ashamed about money, charge more? I remember when I raised my fee to $150 an hour, having a friend whose face was just pure judgment. Right. Like they could not disguise when I told them my new fee that they were just kind of appalled. Right. And then you have to kind of hold your own, against other people's money stories too.
Right. Yeah. And in your work with other therapists around money and really kind of getting their head around it, where do you see that people have, or maybe I'm trying to think how to ask this question. Where do you see that people really begin to be transformed when they change a mindset of some sort?
Yeah. I mean, the mindset piece in the work that I do with folks in my course around this, Money Skills for Therapists, we start with that first, right? And what I find with those different money stories is some of them shift fairly easily. Once we identify them, we're like, oh, that's my dad's story. That's not my story. I don't want to believe that. And some of these stories we can let go of fairly quickly. And others are like more deeply lodged in, our nervous systems or our psyches, however, whatever language you want to use to think about it. And so what I have found is with overcoming these stories, there is a blend of a little bit of awareness goes a long way, fake it till you make it. Raise your fee and realize that people don't actually scream at you. You're not actually like run out of town. Everything's actually fine. Your clients say, good for you. I've been wondering when you're going to raise your fee. Let yourself have these new experiences. But then there's the kind of third box of money stories that actually require therapy, right? And that are much more deeply embedded and, that we need to take to trauma therapy and that we need to approach with, I think, respect and compassion and gentleness. And so what I find is we all carry kind of each of these three boxes in us. So as people start to do the work, there's some things that start to shift quickly and they have fast relief. There's other things that they have to work on kind of over time that gradually they're unwinding. And then there's that second category of like, yeah, I've actually been charging my new fee for a long time, or, hey, look at me, I'm like putting money away for taxes. Maybe I am somebody who can save enough for taxes. So it really is this gradual transformation. And sometimes people get that fast relief of you let go of something that feels terrible and you're like, I feel 100 pounds lighter right away. And then other times there's like those things that linger. So it really is like self-work. And, I think comes with all of the complexities and setbacks and ups and downs that healing has, right? Healing is not linear.
Right.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
You know what? One of the areas I know that was transformational for me early on in my move into private practice, which I'm not going to state how long that is, Ben, but one of the things was really understanding the concept of return on investment. And that I think a lot of us probably grew up with a scarcity mindset around money, and that, okay, if I pay money for this, then I'll no longer have that money. And that, it's just money is lost by putting it into that. And so many times I hear from people, oh, it's just too expensive.
Yeah.
Or I just can't afford that.
Yes.
And I think a big shift is being able to recognize, no, you can't afford not to do some of these things. So you want to say more about that kind of way of thinking?
Yeah. I mean, the return on investment is a really important concept, because I think also too, again, when we haven't had education around business, we might be used to thinking about money more in that like personal consumer way, and we might have heard the messages from our parents of like, well, if we spend that here, we don't have that there, which is true. Right. But when you are in a business, you are building a machine that can generate more money. Right. And part of making that machine work well is we need to invest in it. Right. We need to put money in. We need to create great marketing so that our right fit clients can find us. Right. So with return on investment, something that I actually have developed a tool around this, which I do workshops with sometimes because it's such a huge topic. I see two parts to return on investment. One is that emotional piece, and one is the actual numbers. And this is generally how I approach money overall, Gordon, because it's like, if we don't do the emotional piece first, there's so much noise there that sometimes it's hard to know. So when I walk through folks the process of thinking about return on investment, the first thing that we do is get clear on the emotions that are there, right? As you're thinking about this investment, like what's coming up for you? What's driving you to think about making this investment? Do you want to invest in this course because your friend is doing it and you'd like to do it with her, but the timing's actually kind of bad for you? Right? Do you want to invest in this person because they're kind of pressuring you and you just want to please them? Like just really slowing down to notice what's there. Do you want to invest in this because it's something you've known you need to do for a really long time? Right? And it's strategic. Does it align with what you actually need to do in your business? So letting yourself name the emotions that are there for you, the kind of external factors, what kind of pressures are coming from outside. So like internal pressures are from inside, external pressures from the outside. And then, is this really what you need in your business right now? Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it really is, right? So if it is something that you're like, no, this is a problem I've been needing to solve for a long time. This is a container that makes sense for me. Either like this is a coach that I like, or this is a way of learning that works for me, or this is a kind of service that I know I've succeeded with in the past. If it's all a go, then you can think about actual numbers, right? So, okay, I'm going to spend $2,000 on this new website, let's say. If that website helps me to attract my right I'm so sorry. Right fit clients.
Yeah.
If this website helps me to attract my right fit clients, and let's say reasonably having a really great, wonderful website that's SEO optimized, puts me on the first page, gets me 10 new clients that I wouldn't before. What is the value of those clients to me over the course of a year? Right? And then how much am I actually paying for that? What is the return on investment? If I get, if a client is worth $2,000 from me in a year, I get 10 of those. Now I'm talking about $20,000. I've paid $2,000 for this website. I just got a 10 times return on investment. I put in $2,000. I got back 20 that I wouldn't have recently got. Now you can do actual math, right? But usually I find that as therapists, we need to like ground in the emotions. And as you mentioned, like if you start to think about, okay, I really want to invest in this thing, but I don't have enough money, slow down. It's like, is that a story that you have a lot? Is that what you always heard your mom say when you had to make an investment? Like when the family had to make a financial decision? Then again, you can name, okay, there's that scarcity. If I let the scarcity step aside, is this an investment that actually makes sense for my business? right? Now you can start to approach it from like what in IFS they would call more of like your core self, like wise mind, choose your modality, however you want to think about it. But now you're making a balanced, grounded decision rather than just going into those knee-jerk old money stories that are not strategic and are not going to help you in your business.
Right. I think one of the aha moments I had early on when I started into private practice as a solo practitioner before I started my group practice was investing in something as simple as Psychology Today directory. And I don't know if I read it or what but this is just a really simple, basic example. If I pay $30 a month for this directory assistant and I get just one client from that, it more than pays for itself.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so being able to think about things in that way.
Yes.
And I think even, kind of, as I like to say, a low-hanging fruit for people, and this is really more people that are maybe solo practitioners that are looking to scale and looking to kind of go to the next level, is hiring an assistant of some sort.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that is, I can't afford that. I can't afford but you have to really look at, okay, what are you losing by not hiring an assistant?
That is one of the ones I see folks have the biggest blocks around. I see this all the time, including with group practice owners who have several folks working for them, who have just an insane amount of admin work. And my general take on an administrator is you can't afford not to. Administrators are worth their weight in gold, like a good VA, a good admin. And, a simple equation on that one is just if you're paying an admin $20 an hour and your fee is $160 an hour, it's like you work 1 hour and you can pay them for 8 hours of work, right? So if we think about just that simple equation again of like, trading your time for money, they're doing 8 hours of work. And honestly, they're probably going to do it better than you and possibly faster than you. You see one more client and now there's 8 hours of stuff that's been taken care of in your practice that you don't have to do. That is immensely valuable.
Oh, yeah. And it frees you up to see more clients.
Yes.
And so instead of spending, half a day returning phone calls or trying to track people down and sending, intake stuff. And absolutely worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. But I think, I wonder if part of the barrier to that, as I think about why is that so hard for therapists? I think therapists often, we are the helper. We want to help others. We're not used to being helped, right? And I think there's probably various flavors of that, whether it's that we think we don't deserve help, whether we think we're a failure. If we're getting help, we should be able to do it ourselves, like that hyper-independence. But I do see that is a common block that therapists tend to have, I think just because of the type of people we tend to be.
Right. Yeah. And, I think what goes along with that, and this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, but I know we had talked about it a little bit before we started recording, is recognizing when we need to be very clear about, particularly in a group practice, about our expectations of the people that are working for us, because we want to be nice, we want to be kind, all of those kinds of things. But a lot of times we just have to say, okay, this is how it's got to be done.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I see this with my group practice owners that I work with, and I know you do too, where the caretaking that maybe used to be about clients where it's like, oh, well, I can't charge them that much money. They can't afford it. Often when we get through that level and now we're charging a fee that, it is a worthwhile fee for us. We've overcome that. Then we bring on a team and then we just start doing the caretaking all over again. But now we do it with our team members instead of clients. So it's like new level, new devil. Here's this pattern again that's going to show up in a new, different way. And I see that happen all the time with group practice owners.
Yeah. So in kind of keeping with that thought, in your work with group practice owners, how do you help them work around talking with their staff about money and the importance of all of that? Yeah.
Well, the concept that's at the core of my group practice course, which is Money Skills for Group Practice Owners, is the concept of financial leadership. So it's showing up as the leader you want to be, values aligned, staying connected to why you started this practice, who you serve, what are the values that the practice is upholding, balancing that with having financial clarity and literacy and being grounded in the numbers so the practice is sustainable. Because what I see with group practices so often is they are so tenuous. The numbers are not working, right? So they're like maybe doing really well on serving people, taking care of people. They built a great community and they're funding payroll from their personal bank account, right? So we have to balance these things. So in terms of those conversations with team, what I find group practice owners need to have first is they need to have grounding and clarity around what are the boundaries? What are the expectations? What is that drop dead line that I absolutely need you to work 12 hours a week, right? Because they know now what it means if they go below it. One of the things that I have in that course is a tool, we call it Team Tool. And it allows you to look at each of your positions and understand, is this position profitable for your business? Is there money left behind from this role at the end of the month? Or is this role actually losing money for your business? And once group practice owners see that, that can give them the grounding and clarity to start to have those clarifying conversations with their team of like, hey, our agreement was that you're seeing 10 people, you're seeing 7. I need you to see at least 10 as per our agreement. And if you start seeing 15, here's this incentive, to get you up to the 15 level, right? But what my folks talk about is just when you have that actual clarity with the numbers, you can have those conversations with such confidence because you're not guessing. You're not kind of going by feelings of like, it feels like you should be seeing more clients. It feels like you shouldn't be taking so much vacation. Instead, you can give them actual numbers and guidance and like clear is kind, right? When we can set clear expectations, we are allowing people to actually step up and meet them or to let us know, you know what, I actually don't have the capacity to do this role and I'm going to move on to somewhere else. Right. We can actually, sometimes that ends up resulting in goodbyes, but usually they're goodbyes that needed to happen like a year ago.
Right. Yeah. And, one of the mistakes I made early on in my practice was, particularly after I started my group practice, was paying my people too much. And I know I've had this conversation. You're probably familiar with Julie Harris at Green Oak Accounting and her book, Profit First for Therapists. And in fact, I think she does. She quotes me and uses this as one of the case examples in her book where I was actually paying I just picked up a random number. I said, I'm going to pay my therapist X amount. This seems fair. This seems generous, that kind of thing. But the longer I did it, I really recognized, okay, I'm having trouble making payroll and I'm having to pay them out of what I produce in order to make what I was paying them. And it was really doing them a disservice because it wasn't sustainable. And, I ended up losing a few people, but also it caused me to shift from being a contractor-based system to an employee-based system, and all the difference in the world, and being able to, it was actually more profitable for me, and they actually ended up making more money in the long run too, because I've changed the way I did things. So, So you want to say maybe a little bit about that as well, Lindsay, just about
that fee split? Yes.
Yeah.
That is, I find, the classic mistake that group practice owners make to start is they pay their team too much. And it comes from all the right places, right? It's like they've had their own bad experience of feeling exploited in a group. They've seen people getting underpaid. They want to be that good boss. They want to do it differently, right? Like so many of these choices come from just like the goodness of our hearts and reflect the fact that we're great people and we should be leaders. We should be in business, right? Because we are actually thinking about the well-being of our team. But I have almost never seen it where the first split or waged offer is actually sustainable. It's the tendency is to overgive. And you use the word generous, and it makes me think about how, we can be generous when we're stable, right? We can be generous when things are sustainable. Because then there's actually enough, right? When there's enough, we can give some more, right? But when we start off by being generous, when we're kind of like pouring from an empty cup, as you say, we're actually creating it so that there's this unsustainability, which does trickle down to your team, right? Like that affects how you can show up as a leader. That like you're 1 week away from not being able to pay everybody and having to shut the doors. There's no way that is not impacting your team and the quality of service and your ability to show up for them.
Yeah.
So, we can absolutely be generous, but only once we've built a machine that actually works well and is going to run for the long term.
Right. And it creates a whole atmosphere and a whole culture of scarcity when you're doing that. And
Absolutely.
So that's, yeah. Well, Lindsay, I got to be respectful of your time. And I know we could probably spend all day talking about these things. Tell folks maybe some parting thoughts on this and how they can get in touch with you and talk about your podcast as well.
Yeah. I mean, going back to where we started with money shame, why therapists are so ashamed, the biggest thing folks can do once you recognize that you have stuff around money is start to connect with people around you. We know that shame, doesn't withstand the light of day. You think you're the only one who feels this way. I can tell you as somebody who's worked with thousands of therapists that you are absolutely not, right? So getting that connection, getting into resources like mine, you're already listening to Gordon's podcast, which is great, right? So getting exposure to people talking about money in open, honest ways, but also starting to have your own conversations with colleagues and friends starts to shift that shame, right? And allows you to start to heal and grow and change around money. So to that end, I have my podcast, the Money Skills for Therapists podcast, that folks are welcome to check out, where we talk about the practical and emotional sides of money. I have coaching conversations on there where I coach listeners or graduates from my program about money, which is really powerful. And then I also have a masterclass called the 4-Step Framework to Getting Your Private Practice Finances in Order, where you can learn more about my approach and what I do, and Money Skills for Therapists, which is my course for solo practitioners. And that's how you get your invite to that course as well. So moneynutsandbolts.com is my website. So if you go there, you'll see my courses, the group practice, the solo, you'll see the masterclass, you'll see the podcast, and just immerse yourself in this. Let the silence around this start to fall away. It feels so much better when money is not a burden.
Right. Yeah. And we'll have links in the show notes and show summary for all of this. And Lindsay, I'm so glad we connected and hopefully get you back on here before too long.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Gordon.
Well, again, a big thanks to Lindsay for joining me on the podcast. And I hope you'll check out her website, moneynutsandbolts.com, and also her podcast just called Money Skills for Therapists. But, I think all of us carry a little bit of money shame, on some of us a lot of it. But one of the things that I think you can do is just really overcome a lot of those things just by learning and naming what's going on, and you can overcome a lot of the fears that we have around money and how we can make ourselves more profitable in our practices. Also, if you're interested in working with me or doing some consulting, as I mentioned at the beginning, be sure and go to the website practiceoftherapy.com and just click on that button that says coaching and consulting, and you can start the process and we can begin a conversation. Also, big thanks to TherapyNotes for being a sponsor of this podcast. They are the leading electronic health records system for mental health providers. They are who I use in my practice, and always amazed at the improvements and the things that they keep adding to their platform, particularly now with the AI capabilities and being able to create session notes or progress notes just very quickly, just by typing in a few things. And also, if you're doing telehealth, being able to record the session and it transcribing it into a usable note. So be sure and check it out. Go to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and use that promo code just Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. So take care, folks. Got lots of great episodes lined up. Do take time to follow us and subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. Take care. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.
All right, listen up, people. We need to talk about something really important. Orgasms. If you're not making them a priority, pinkcherry.com is here to fix that. Orgasms boost your mood, lower stress, and help you sleep. And let's be honest, we could all use a little release these days. From the iconic magic wand to We Vibes couples toys to the game-changing womanizer, pinkcherry.com has everything you need, solo or with someone. Feeling good is the goal. So go to pinkcherry.com and treat yourself. You deserve it. If you know, you owe.